My name is Josef Svoboda. I am Emeritus Professor of Biology at the University of Toronto. I spent over 30 summers as field ecologist in the Canadian North, conducting my research mostly in the high Arctic. My presentation will be about the Canadian Arctic biome, which means a large geographic region defined by a specific topography and climate. Next. Quaternary glaciation or North America 12,000 years ago. This glaciation is marked by several advancement and retreat phases and ended some 6,000 years ago. The picture shows North American continent in the maximum phase of glaciation. Ice did cover the entire Canada and present United States up to the present state of Nebraska and Illinois. Note the darker blue center is the latest phase of the glaciation process. Next. Map of the Canadian Arctic Archipelago. It represents a group of Canadian islands north of Lancaster Sound, and these are Prince William Island, Cornwallis Island, Devon Island, and Ellesmere Island. Next. Retreating glacier at Sverdrup Pass, Ellesmere Island. The picture shows the barren ice-free valley of the relatively recent deglaciated pass. No vegetation had established yet. Next. Retreating glacier at Alexandra Fiord. Note that the glacier is never retreating, meaning climbing up the slope. It is either sliding down faster than it is melting away, or it is melting faster than it's sliding. A close-up of the present ice-free margins of the shrinking glacier. Two phases of ice retreat are clearly visible. The older, darker phase indicates the maximum extent of the recent glaciation. Later, the glacier began to retreat again, as seen at the bleached, lighter brown zone where lichens had not established yet, due to no fast disappearing ice mass. Next. Midnight sun in Canada. This is a time-lapse photo of the midnight sun at the lowest position, just above the horizon, north of the Arctic Circle at 66.3 degrees north. Next. Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis, above the Northern Study Center at Churchill, Manitoba at 58 degrees north. I have conducted several summer field courses of Arctic ecology in this place. About 25 students attending the summer course each year there. Next. Polar Oasis, Alexandra Fiord, Lowland, Ellesmere Island. Two glaciers from left and right are now retreating, making more green tundra available for grazing. Next. Typical Inuit village, Baker Lake, Nunavut. Notice that the houses are built on stilts to preserve and protect the permafrost in the ground. There's a common scene, seeing dogs waiting to be harnessed to the sleds when snow arrives in mid-August. Next. A-shaped plastic-covered greenhouses at Rankin Inlet, Nunavut. A variety of vegetables were grown in them. This was my student Mark Romer's project. Next. Green Igloos farm at Alexandra Fiord Lowland at 79 degrees north at Ellesmere Island. These are umbrella-shaped greenhouses. Judy McCurdy and Bonnie Bergsma students project. Next. Arctic poppies flourishing in the green igloo, achieving more than double the size and mass compared to those growing in open tundra. Next. In the green igloos, vegetables are grown in soil-filled plastic bags in protection from the frozen ground permafrost. Next. These radishes, grown from seeds, were harvestable in 3 weeks. Next. We have also succeeded growing several varieties of potatoes, obtained courtesy of the University of Guelph in Ontario. Next. A happy gardener, student Bonnie Bergsma, with clumps of record-sized Arctic plants grown in green igloos. Next. The chief gardener, carrying first giant turnips from the green igloos garden. The produce was sent to Yellowknife officials. Next. Students visiting the open-top greenhouse garden in Rankin Inlet, Nunavut. They were surprised and happy to see that the vegetables grown in the greenhouses are much bigger. At the end of our experiments, we donated the greenhouses to the village. Next. Experimental setup of the algae production in water from the melting glacier at Sverdrup Pass. There were 2 parallel troughs, both containing stripes of plastic screen nets to be populated by algae developing on them. Glacial water was introduced to each of them at a rate of 100 milliliters per second. However, into one trough, an additional nutrient solution was dripping all the time, while the second trough served as a control with no addition of nutrient solution. Results, after 2 weeks, plastic stripes in both troughs were covered by algae. However, the one with extra nutrients developed much thicker algal coating. Next. 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 A 100-meter long open trough algal growth experiment of Josef from the University of South Bohemia in Czech Republic. Next. Thick algal growth on the plastic screen nets after 2 weeks of being nourished by running glacier water. Sufficient amount of nutrients was being provided to support abundant algal growth. Next. A professor with his student, Glenda Jones, Joseph Elster, and their field technicians. Next. Outdoor lunch at a sunny day in July, Sverdrup Pass, Ellesmere Island. We brought a variety of foods and drinks from the south. However, the students like to make fresh breads and cakes, and I usually made potato garlic soup. Next. An unusual note sheet of a composer, Andrew Svoboda, our volunteer student. This time he was measuring the cushion area of Arctic dryas and recording the number of flowers it had produced. Next. Bill Freeman, professor at Dalhousie University, and Josef Svoboda, measuring light intensity of the surrounding landscape. Next. Greg Henry and Josef Svoboda installing thermocouple sensors inside and outside of the open-top chamber, built to ameliorate the microclimate within the chamber. Next. Experimental snow fence with the remaining large snow drifts in front and behind the fence around July 10, 1992. Such a snow fence should have protecting the village from being buried in snow in winter. Next. Three generations of Arctic researchers, Professor Larry Bliss, Josef Svoboda, and Greg Henry at the plateau of Sverdrup Pass. Next. Walking with the famous British filmmaker David Attenborough, who visited our camp in Sverdrup Pass. Next. Polar station at Truelove Lowland, Devon Island, 75 degrees north in early spring 1970. At this station, Professor Larry Bliss organized International Biological Program, or IBP, for more than 50 graduate students and scientists. I did my PhD fieldwork there. Next. Muskox defense formation in Truelove Lowland. There's a story. Once I was charged by a muskox bull. It ran straight towards me. At the last split of second, I stepped aside to the right. The angry bull missed me. It was confused, and then it walked away. I was lucky at the time. Next. Fresh polar bear tracks in snow in Truelove Lowland. We have a few polar bear encounters during our expeditions. There's a funny story with students Doreen M. Naybert and Janine Murray. One sunny afternoon, Doris and Janine were running towards the camp screaming, "Joseph, polar bears are here." I looked towards the direction they pointed out and laughed. They were white caribous, as white as polar bears, however, still caribous. Scary story sounds like that. Greg and I were walking through the valley of Sverdrup Pass, not far from the field camp. There were still patches of snow everywhere. Suddenly, Greg noticed one of the snow patch ahead of us, only about 50 meters, started to move. He shouted, "Joseph, run, Nanook!" I froze. Luckily, the bear was not in hunting mode. He did not pay any attention to us. It walked slowly across the valley, bypassing our camp. By the way, we had 2 guns kept in the base camp, but none on us. Next. Herds of white belugas, which are often seen in the Jones Sound. Next. Oat bones provide nutrients for plants. These were purple saxifrage and Carex nardina. Pre-glacial late tertiary giant non-fossilized redwood stump metasequoia about 2 million years ago survived in the ice and later released after deglaciation. That's it. Michael Svoboda inspecting muskox skeleton with horns at Lake Hazen. Other bones of wild animals are found lying in tundra. For example, caribou bones, whale bones, muskox bones, polar bear bones, and caribou antlers. Josef Svoboda Research Station at Svalbard, Norway, operated by South Bohemian University, Czech Republic. It is a center for polar ecological research. We have a base station, a field station, and research vessel there. Research in biodiversity, hydrology, geology, meteorology, and ecology is being conducted there. Next. The base station provides 10 to 20 people with accommodation, with kitchen, bathroom, shower, life science labs, with lab instruments. Next. RV Cleone fishery vessel for the marine study at the research station. Next. Thank you for your attention.